Good day and welcome back to another World of Warcraft video. In this video we're going to talk a little bit about should you come back to World of Warcraft, or why should you play World of Warcraft in Season 2 of the War Within, and basically, is there a big incentive? Like, should I be playing World of Warcraft in Season 2? Am I going to have fun? What's changed? What's different? What's the big attractions? And just kind of go through it and take a look there. So yeah, let's get going. Let's take a look see. So I want to talk about a little bit about the like just in general Undermine content. So the Undermine content in general is pretty good. I would say it's a good area. I don't think it's necessarily an amazing area. Like, I don't think it's aesthetically my type of zone. Like, I probably wouldn't rank it amongst my top 10 zones aesthetically. But what I will say, I think the content here is pretty good. I think the story is a ton of fun in Undermine. I think the way they've redone the world boss for the area, dropping Warbound gear, is pretty good. I know it's a bit of a difference from maybe what we've had in the past, but I do think it's really well done. I think it's very interesting. I think it's a good change. It gives you incentive to run it every week. I think the quests have been really good here. I think the side quests are good. I think the side activities are good as well. Like, I like the scrapping. I think it's interesting. I like the dry function. I think it needs a bit of tweaking, but I think it's a cool concept to give ground mounts the same kind of treatment as dragon riding, and I think to a larger extent it's been successful for me. I do like the zooming around and everything. I think it's good, but you have a lot of what makes World of Warcraft pretty good. Like, you got your world quests, you got your rep grinds, you've got your little treasures and rares and things to put together. You've got a decent to follow plotline that I thought was quite cool, and I don't even like goblins, so I thought it was pretty good. And yeah, in general, I'd say Undermined has been a good success. If you're someone who plays World of Warcraft for casual gameplay, you're going to be spending the majority of your first week or two inside Undermined, just experiencing it, exploring it, completing the quest line, having a good time. And I think it's okay. Like, I think it's at a good level for that type of stuff. I do think it's not necessarily the biggest zone, and I do think it gets a little bit repetitive, but that's because I don't like urban zones. So I think overall the fact that I can even tolerate it shows that I think it's a pretty well designed zone. So I think overall it's been done successfully. I have enjoyed my time in Undermine. It's now 3 weeks in, and I think it's still going pretty well. Lots of people are still attempting the events and doing the content, so it's looking pretty good so far. So let's talk about the raid. Now, before I can really comment on the raid, I must admit that I've only done around about half the raid on normal so far. I've done the whole thing on LFR, I think twice, just for some ults and things like that. The raid itself is, I would say, solid. I don't find it to be absolutely insane. Again, I'm not a huge goblin guy, so the mechas, the goblins, all that sort of stuff is not up my alley. I think the fights were fun. Again, speaking as someone who's done them on normal, or at least the first 5 on normal, and yeah, I think ultimately it's like a good time. I will be starting Heroic pretty soon, and that will give me more of a guidance into how the rating is structured, or at least how it performs at a bit of a higher pug level. But I think overall I'd have to say that most of the raids are pretty solid. I think the bosses are pretty fun. I think they're at a decent level of difficulty. I know from like a world first point of view, this was, I think, completed at a decent time as well, so it looks like mythic level is pretty good. And I must say, it does feel almost shorter in design. It's only 8 bosses, and the way the raid is structured, it can actually feel pretty quick. Like on lower difficulties, definitely, the normals, the LFRs, it can actually feel pretty quick. So I think it's in a good space. For a first timer or someone who's doing very casual content, I think it's fun and enjoyable. I think if you're looking for mythic level, from my understanding, it's at a pretty good level. So we'll just have to see. But for me, I found the raid enjoyable. I definitely think players could come back and have a really good time with it. Let's talk PvP. So there have been some changes with PvP. There's some new battlegrounds, some new things to get involved with. PvP is PvP. So I can't convince you to come back for the PvP if you didn't play PvP. And if you play PvP hardcore, chances are you are playing. That's kind of how PvP is. I will say, if you're a player who's ever been interested in getting into PvP, the amount of different rated game modes that are available and the amount of ways to grab early entry PvP gear, to experience PvP, to get involved with PvP is pretty good. I'm not going to say it's a season 2 thing. Like if you didn't do PvP in season 1 and you didn't like it in season 1, chances are you probably won't like it in season 2. Like nothing's changed that much on a fundamental basis. But if you're someone who's never got into World of Warcraft PvP, there's definitely some good incentive, I think, to playing PvP and trying it out, because I do think there is a really good foundation for PvP. I think it's really quite solid. So yeah, I think like I can't convince you if you've never been into PvP. I'm not a PvP main, I'm not that kind of guy, but I do think for me overall, yeah, PvP seems to be in a good space. I think the balance is feeling okay based on what I've seen, but at the same time, PvP is always a little bit of a mess from a balance perspective. But I think season 2 looks promising. I've heard good things, so yeah. So let's talk about solo content. Delves, compared to season 1, pretty much more of the same. There are improvements to delves that I think are pretty good. So the things I do like about this season with delves, and if you were big into delves in season 1, what I like about delves in this season, so firstly, what I really like is that they've given incentive to doing higher delve tiers. So they haven't made it too OP, but they've given you a more of a curve. So for example, tier 8s were as good as it got, and you just did tier 8s and you got to a certain level and you kind of stopped. Now what they've done is they've said, okay, you can do up to tier 11. The reward weekly and, you know, kind of on a per delve basis is not that much more improved, but it is slightly improved, and you also have the added incentive of having, for example, the additional chance at gilded runes. And this was something delvers did not have access to in season 1, and I think overall it's a good change that for me makes it that going a bit deeper in delves is better. I do wish there was still some scaling rewards to really push going in like the kind of, like, how can I say, 12s, 13, like really push delves, like give people a reason to push it as far as they can. But I think overall it's really, really good. And if you enjoyed delving in season 1, you will love delving in season 2. The powers a little bit rough. I do wish they'd made the powers a little bit more exciting. They have added in new storylines even for the older delves as well. So I think they've managed to freshen it up enough. Even though there's only 2 new delves, the older delves all have added in a goblin, you know, kind of storyline. So I think it's pretty good overall. I really quite like it. I think it's been a good change, and I think for me there's definitely enough. I've mainly been running delves up to now. I'm starting to do my rating, and it's been really good, really fun, really fresh. I've enjoyed it. It's been a good way to also quickly gear up, and yeah, it's been a really good time. So obviously, you know, that's a ton of incentive from like a content point of view. Look, as a solo player, there's always stuff that's been added in that you can kind of get interested in, especially in the Undermine. There's a lot of niggly content that can be, you know, like, how can I say, done over time. There's some content that is going to take you a very long time to finish in the Undermine. It is a bit of a hell. But overall, I would say there's a lot of decent content here. I'm not going to say it's the most content heavy or most perfect little kind of sub-content patch we've ever gotten. Like, it's not the most perfect season ever, but I think they did a good job. I really think they've made it so that it is an exciting, albeit more refined experience for players in Season 2. And I think that overall, from like a PvP, PvE kind of gaming, solo / group content perspective, I think is really good. I just think, yeah, for me, there's definitely a good season here. I have enjoyed my time. I do think the goblins get a little bit too much for me, just because I am not a goblin person. But I think overall it is definitely really, from a content point of view, I think it's quite good, at least for me overall. So look, in terms of quality of life, kind of overarching changes in Season 2, there's been some interesting stuff. You know, they've done small things like added in new backgrounds for warbands and stuff. I think they've made warbound gear a little bit more accessible with things like the world boss and just in general. They have, you know, obviously continued to work on the renown so the faction wide. So there have been some good changes. There's also been some unfortunate changes backwards that I think aren't really good. So I would have spoken, or I will do a video talking kind of about troves. Not a huge fan of those, to be honest with you, at least how they've been treated. I'm a fan of them as a concept. I don't like that they added mounts back. I just don't think it was a good call overall. In terms of other stuff, look, I think in general, it's been a good season from a quality of life point of view. Again, like I said, I'm not going to say that they've done huge changes, but they've done enough to make me think that they still care about the game, which I think is good. I think for me overall, they still have plenty that they can improve, but I think they are getting there, you know, just in terms of like general quality of life, player performance, the account-wide stuff and everything. What I will say, for me, personally as a player, I have found this season fairly simple to get into, but I speak as someone who has played Season 1, so I would love someone to kind of comment as a perspective of someone who maybe hasn't played Season 1 and is coming in, you know, as a Season 2 kind of main. I think that would be very interesting to have the opinion of. So my overall thoughts are basically, I think Season 2 is a good continuation and a slight improvement on what made Season 1 of The War Within good for me. Things like delves and interesting functions have kind of been improved. There's been some small setbacks, albeit annoying ones, in terms of some of the QOL and some of the factions and renowns and things. But I think overall there's enough content here to keep you going in Season 2. If someone had to say to me, if I really enjoyed Season 1, will I enjoy Season 2? I would say without a doubt. You will enjoy Season 2. It will be something you are going to have a lot of fun with. If someone said to me, I didn't enjoy Season 1 at all, I hated it, it was the worst experience of my life, it is the worst game I've ever played, then I'm sorry, but you are probably not going to enjoy Season 2 of The War Within. And there's not really too much I can do about that. I think Season 2 is a continuation of what made Season 1 pretty cool. I enjoyed it as a WoW fan. I think it was a good step in the right direction. Season 2 continues a lot of those, albeit with some minor almost step backs. But I think overall, it's some good stuff, and I think it's pretty decent. So yeah, it's good for me. So that's that. Let me know what you think about Season 2. Have you played it? Have you not played it? And yeah, basically, do you want to? That would be super interesting to hear. I've given you my thoughts. Let me know yours, and I'll see you in the next one. Till then, bye.